couple of days ago I did a slick little build up on a Colnago V1-R bicycle with Dura-Ace 11-speed Di2. So I wanted to just do a little kind of a quick little tutorial on some of the, give you a few tips and things as far as how to, if you're doing one of these. This bike came with I like the bottom bracket assembly on it. It's this particular one is set up for a press fit Shimano bottom bracket, which that's the little tool that'll install the cups the bottom bracket presses into. And basically we're using all new Dura-Ace 11-speed Di2 components there. Nice little parts package. So what we wanted to do first, to remove the fork to make the installation easier, but we're needing to cut it down. Went ahead and measured out the steer tube. On a carbon steer, the highest you want to go is 5 centimeters from the top of the frame to the base of the stem. So basically what I do here is just took a silver Sharpie and measured the top of the steer, and then put our guide up and cut it from there. Anyway, this frame has had some Teflon tubes there, and it's set up to build as a mechanical drivetrain. Since we're doing the Di2, went ahead and just removed this tube that typically the rear derailleur would go through, and there's a little block off plate, and so we just put that in place. So nice clean little, nothing there on that side. Here we had a derailleur cable and a brake port, so we went ahead and pulled this one off. It basically was set up for 2 cable stops there, and the one we ended up replacing with this has, one side is for the brake cable stop, your ferrule butts right up to it, and then this one you got a larger hole for your electric, your E-wire, Di2 wire to go through. So we're going to start out first with our little tool there. I'll put a link to show you how to use and make this tool that on another video I made. But anyway, we're just going to use the actual Teflon tube there that's supplied that you normally would run a geared cable through, and basically just ran our wire through. I mean, actually you could just normally thread your cable, the little guide tool right on through. It's super simple. This one actually, came out where the derailleur cable would go, but ended up just rerouting it directly through the bottom bracket. And so we got first wire through the frame there. I went ahead and just taped it in place, taped it there just alongside the bottom bracket as well. And you can see I've got a shorter tube running through the bottom bracket to where the front derailleur would hook up to. I've got it taped down as well, and right now we're using the tool to go through the drive side chainstay, which this is where that tool really comes in handy, because some bikes that's a tricky little spot to try to get a wire through there. And sure enough on this one, I got to that last little bit, and there's a little kink in the frame there, so it was a little difficulty getting that last little bit through, but it came right through. Not a big deal, which I can only imagine how somebody would get one of those through without some kind of a tool or something to help you out. So got the 3 wires there, and we're gonna get our internal seat post battery wire routed next. I've seen a few videos on how to mount the battery up into a seat post. This is the one I like to use, which is just taking some pipe foam, and it comes with all kinds of bikes that we build up out of the box. And this stuff, we have trash bags full of this stuff that we just recycle and use it to pack bikes or just for random stuff like this. But anyway, if you just kind of twist that in there and compress the foam, it'll basically holds the battery nice and tight there. And usually I'll get it to where maybe the battery's sticking out about a ½ an inch, and then just with a razor blade cut off the excess material there, and it sets it up nice and flush. You don't have to stick it in with any kind of adhesive. Holds nice and tight, but you can still pull it out by hand if you need to. It's not too awful tough, but I've never had one fall out yet with that method. So works real well, simple to use, easy, super lightweight, and everything else. If you purchased your parts, like maybe you have some older parts, or you're going from 10 speed to 11 speed, which a lot of that's convertible either which way, but any which way, if you get your parts from different suppliers, it's a good idea to update the firmware. I usually always like to check them on a bike like this if we got the components from different suppliers, but in this case everything was up to date, and just a good idea to check it out. I went ahead and pulled the longest cable from the junction to the handlebar, pulled it back through the bottom bracket, and put the little zip ties on there to keep it from rattling around the frame, and actually put a little piece of foam around the junction box and got it kind of set in there. The Shimano, I pressed the bottom bracket in, and with the Shimano bottom bracket, it's got the dust cap that'll isolate the spindle away from the wires. If you're doing like a BB30 setup, you would want to put some kind of shield to keep the wires from rubbing up against the spindle. I got to do a few little tips here as far as the build up. I'm going to presume if you have some experience with the Di2, it's pretty set up to adjust and everything else, but one little tip on the double pinch bolts, like on a Shimano crank or similar to a stem, you always want to alternate the torque back and forth on each bolt. I've seen quite a few of these rounded off or stripped out, people trying to loosen one side, to loosen one up all the way, and then hit the other, and the metals kind of binds itself up, and it'll lock that other screw and the other bolt in there, and so basically rounds out the head trying to break it loose. So if when you're torquing it down initially, always go back and forth. Same thing with removing it, just loosen each bolt back and forth a little at a time. The stem here, that's kind of another issue of I like to, when I'm initially just putting things like this together, I'll use a kind of a light duty little driver there to help get the screws in quickly. Production type work like this, get it done quick and move on to the next thing. But I'll usually get them set up with that, and then always use a proper torque wrench to get the torque setting. But same thing, alternate through the bolts there, usually like a Z pattern or an N pattern, just back and forth, make sure the plate's even. At this point we got the bars and ready to mount up the shifters, got the rear derailleur on. The front derailleur on these, if you're not familiar with the Di2 systems, it's you want to basically mount it up with the tail end of the rear derailleur, I would say about 3 degrees in initially. You'll do the standard, you want it over the large chain ring, 1 to 3 millimeters, but the tail end, you want it inwards towards the bike about 3 millimeters. This one's one of the ones that has a little Colnago supplied a chain catcher with it, so it's always a little tricky getting that set up right where you need it. You may have to fine tune it later to get it just right up against the chain, but there's a little plate that'll stick to the carbon frame and a little set screw. There it is right there. That plate actually needs to be moved up, but you have a little screw that basically stiffens the platform there, and once you cinch that down, it'll basically the edge of your derailleur will set parallel to the the chain ring there, the big ring. Anyway, the bike came out real nice, rode really sweet. If you have any comments or questions, just leave them there in the comment section, or if you like this video, other things like it, just feel free to subscribe. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.